All right, we are going to finish up Unit 6 in this video and look at Lesson 19. Again, we'll go right into the lesson notes since right into the examples since there's no new lesson notes. So let's take a look here. The water level F in feet at a certain beach is modeled by the function f of t equals 2 sine of 2 pi t divided by 24, where t is the number of hours since the level was measured. What is the amplitude of this function? What does it mean in context? So, amplitude of this function. So, let's go back and look at our lesson notes from our past lesson. Amplitude, remember, is the absolute value of the number that's in front of sine or cosine. In this case, amplitude is going to be the absolute value of 2 or 2. Okay? So that means if I'm measuring the water level, because remember, F represents the water level. So if I'm measuring the water level, high tide, the high point of the water level is going to be 2 feet above. And then the low point, the low tide, is going to be at 2 feet below our landmark. Okay. So in context, this is telling me that high tide is going to be 2 feet above average. So whatever the average water height is for this particular beach, high tide is going to be 2 feet above average, and low tide is going to be 2 feet below whatever our average water height is. Okay. Number 2, what is the period of the function? What does it mean in this context? So period, remember, is 2 pi over b, okay, where b is the number, okay, sorry, I went too fast. B is the number that's next to x or t inside the parentheses. So period is going to be 2 pi over b. In this case, b equals 2 pi over 24. Okay, so this is going to be 2 pi divided by 2 pi divided by 2 pi over 24. And you could calculate this in your head, or if you need to use a calculator, use a calculator. I'll just use Desmos. So it's 2 pi divided by 2 pi over 24. And I get a period of 24, and this is going to be 24 hours. Okay, so the period is 24 hours. So that means it goes through a cycle of high tide and low tide every 24 hours. So the water level goes through a cycle of high tide and low tide every 24 hours. So every day it goes through a cycle. Okay. Number 3, sketch a graph of the function over 72 hours. So 72 hours is 3 days. Okay. So if I were to sketch this, okay, I know that it would start and end at 24, right? My high tide and low tide cycle ends at 24. So that means it's going to go up to 2, and then it's going to go down to -2, and then back up to 24. And I actually did a very poor job of drawing this. So let me draw it again. So it's going to start at the average, at 0 in this case, and it's going to go up to my high tide of 2, then it's going to come down to a low tide of -2, and then back up to 0. And it does that cycle in 24 hours. So the next 24 hours are going to be the same thing. It's going to go up to my high tide, down to my low tide, back up to 0. And then same thing, up, down to my low tide, and then up to 0. And that is a very rough sketch of the graph. And that is it for this lesson.